Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about reinventing yourself after hitting rock bottom. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is a thinker, and this is something that we should start thinking about, or if anything, just reflect on it, right? So, luckily for me, I have Myron here on as a special guest to really help us think about this. So, Myron, thank you so much for coming on my show. Let's just go ahead and dive right in. When you hear the words reinventing yourself after hitting rock bottom, what does that mean to you?
It's a great question. First of all, thanks for having me here. What does that mean to you? It means like 16 years of being nowhere. That's what it means. It means the survival of your life. It means
Yeah.
either you survive or you never come back. That's what it means. It
Mm,
means
that,
never giving up, even though when you have no reason not to give up. It means getting out of bed in the morning, even though you have nothing to get out of bed for. Uh,
yeah.
it means that whatever you thought is not true anymore, at least for the time being, anyway. So it's and in a very simple, common term, it's a challenge, and that's probably a gross understatement.
Yeah, it is a challenge. It is a challenge to try to reinvent yourself, especially after hitting rock bottom. But why do you think people are
Yeah.
so afraid of hitting rock bottom? Just the idea of hitting rock bottom is
Well,
just terrifying. Why is
yeah.
that, you think?
Well, I don't blame them because you lose control. The familiar becomes unfamiliar, so you don't know where you are. So it's like all of a sudden you snap your fingers, you're in a forest. There's nobody within thousands and thousands of miles around except the bad guys. So you don't know where to go, what to do. You're lost. So for damn good reason, I wouldn't want to hit rock bottom if I could have avoided it. But it's like why would you shoot yourself in the foot purposely? I mean, unless I don't know, unless there's something going wrong mentally, but it's pretty insane. Why would you hurt yourself purposely? It's bad enough that without even trying, you could probably get hurt, let alone do it to
Yeah.
yourself. But it makes no sense. So it's the same thing. So it's not something that I think so-called normal people us want to do, but it either especially when I do it, whether you're 30 or because I reinvented myself at 57 or 50, no, 67, even worse, what's wrong? 67. I hit rock
Wow.
bottom at almost 50. Yeah. So I didn't have the luxury of age. I was like, more than half, living my life. Right at that point, and back to zero, worse than zero, minus zero. When you're in your 20s, you need starting your career or starting profession or starting whatever you want to start, you're at zero. That's okay. You don't have baggage.
Yeah.
But I had tons of, unfortunately, baggage, a history. But I have to throw in something that you have to be lucky about. If you hit rock bottom or not, is this thing called love. I mean, I always mention it. So if you're fortunate, Mitzi, and I say fortunate, you gotta be lucky because it really is a lot of it's luck in terms of you have someone whoever he or she may be, that you really generally love is the so-called one. I know it sounds like a movie and cliche, but it does happen. Okay, and because movies are based a metaphor for life, stories are a
Yeah.
metaphor for life. When you go in and watch a movie or read a book, you want to see things that you know can happen, or read things, or understand things. That's how you can relate to it with the
Yeah.
character. They may be exaggerated for entertainment value, and that's cool. But we know there's threads of truth to it. Otherwise, it would be that's what fiction's all about, the metaphor for life. But they're readable, so it does happen. But it's rare. Sometimes almost it feels like winning the lottery. So I just want to throw that in because I mean, if you're alone, you're alone. It is what it is, to use the cliche. But because cliches are for a reason, because they're true. But I was fortunate. I have a wife. My wife's in Brooklyn, and we've been married now 38 years. But at that point, we met standing in line at LaGuardia Airport, the taxi stand, and yeah, and she's Catholic and I'm Jewish, and it still worked. Okay, and she didn't change, so it's a miracle. But she stood by me, so that's a big deal. But at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself and look at it. When you look at the mirror, you're alone. You see yourself, so you got to figure it out yourself. Because if you
Yeah.
don't get to yourself, you don't get to anybody else. Obviously, it's going to show in your behavior. So
Yeah.
you know, you can lie. You maybe can get away with other people, but it's very hard to lie to yourself. I mean, you can,
Yeah.
but going to last long,
It
and it's
doesn't.
not going to go anywhere, and it's really a waste. Um, I live by this now and reinventing. I live by this by the very obvious expression is that you know whatever it is that you want to do in life, whatever it is, everybody has dream, whatever it is. Um, do it now because one day you won't be able to do it. Now, it's very obvious, but it's not obvious. So whether you're 25, 35, or 85, it's very true. It comes to an end. It's hard to believe it comes to an end at 20 years old because you're filled with the future, but it does. And it may prematurely come to an end or it may just naturally come to, who the hell knows? But
Yeah.
so as much as possible, approach things with a sense of urgency, really
Yeah.
do what you wanted to do. The younger you are, theoretically, the more time you have and healthier. The only thing that really would have, and so far, thank God, has not, is if you're facing a physical or mental serious health issue, that obviously can hold you back and will hold you back
Mhm.
and maybe destroy you or kill you or crush you. But
Mhm.
barring if it's not that, and if I take I now I make a big effort. It's not just in my work, but obviously mental and physical exercises and what I eat as much as possible. It's a lot better. I'm far from perfect and have my traits of baggage and food and everything, culinary baggages, burgers and McDonald's and stuff like that was not good, but I still love it. But it's called balance. But I work very hard to do as much as quite often, healthy things physically and mentally. The other thing I'm fortunate, I have a dog, which I love more than anything in the world. My
That's
dog's
good.
named Brooklyn. My dog's named Brooklyn, by the way. If you saw her, you'd love her too. So just by taking care, it's like having a human being. Anybody who has a dog knows that. So if you can't do that, it's like taking care of a kid, more or less, almost. But they need to be walked, and so it's good
Yeah.
exercise. And so for you, so I'd say the key thing to a couple of things to keep in mind. The other thing if you want to reinvent yourself is get up every day, no matter how bad, if you hit rock bottom or you face, maybe not rock bottom, but you hit a lot of disappointment or you had or failure or it didn't work out to it. Be open to changing your path course, your course if you have to. Nothing is set in stone, and
Yeah.
you think there's a different path, there might be. You have to
Yeah.
attain it. Maybe path you thought that could be. The other thing is, I went to a lot of, and I don't do as much anymore, but I did what's called meetups, groups where people were in their 20s and 30s. Every city has them. New York, Chicago,
Mhm.
Toronto. Milwaukee has them too. I'm sure Wisconsin, everybody has it. Where generally people in their 20s and 30s, and they go to talk about technology, generally IT stuff. But the point is not. The point is that you have people in their 20s and 30s beginning their life, so they're exploding with optimism, right? And they
Mhm.
have only the future to look forward to tomorrow. There isn't much
Yeah.
of a path, and that's good. So it can rub off on you. It doesn't really matter what they're talking about. It's matter that who they are, what they do. You're not going to see people 70 years old going to meetups. Generally not. Very rare. Probably nobody over 50, 40 if you're lucky. So it's I never experienced many people. There was the odd person in their 50, 60, but I mean extremely odd and rare. Like 1% of the time. So
Yeah.
99% of the time is people in their 20s and 30s and the younger, and which is great. It's exactly what the doctor called for. So I think
Yeah.
that's critical. But you still, even though, understandably, you have no motivation, no desire, you feel it can only get worse or it can't get better. You keep pushing in the hope that because if you give up, we know what that means. You give up, and
Yeah.
it just it's
Spirals
like
down.
falling down a mountain, right? You never stop. You keep
Yeah.
falling, 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 and at some point you can't catch yourself. So
Exactly.
everybody has to make that decision, and it's more complicated. I just didn't want to surrender, so I
Yeah.
did.
That's good. I mean, you got to have that initiative for yourself. You know what I
Right,
mean? And when you tie in love, like you spoke about earlier, it's important because it gives you this passion, this drive to do something for somebody else. You know what I mean? Because
right.
sometimes we catch ourselves not willing to do it for ourselves, but we're willing to do it for somebody else because we know that'll make them happy, that'll bring them joy, it'll make them sure that they're good,
They may
So
also inspire you. They
I,
also may inspire you.
exactly.
but not everybody has that opportunity. If you don't, that's fine. But the other thing is, it took me 16 years to reinvent myself. It didn't happen a day or two. 16, 1 6. That's a hell of a long time from 50 to 67 or 17 years in anybody's book. A hell of a long time. It's a goddamn miracle I kept going. So, I know, but it's not like a week, a month or two. And of course, when you go through that kind of hell, you very often think that it's never going to get better, understandably so, or it's never going to see a sunnier day, and does
It
feel like
takes
that.
Yeah, it takes a lot of self-reflection. Am I right? Like a lot of
Yeah,
self-reflection because I remember when I've been in my rock bottom moments where I'm just like, what is going on here? I have to reflect back on yourself. What were the actions? What were I mean, we have to admit to some point, to some degree, we have to take accountability for our actions. And we have to realize the consequences that come with our choices and our decisions and our thought process and our words. And I think once we acknowledge our part in whatever the situation may come to be, like you said, we could feel like it's rock bottom in any scenario for a breakup, for a job loss, for a family death, for a sickness, for, a pet grief. I mean, you can fill in the blanks and whatever
absolutely.
sorrows you want to
Yeah.
feel or you may be going through. But I think it comes down to, at the same time, putting some facts to the situation, like you said earlier, because it makes you realize and see the situation for the whole scenario, what it really is versus wherever you're stuck at. Because man, 16 years it took you to reinvent yourself. That is a long time. Like you said, it took a long time, but it just showed. And I love the fact that you're so open and honest about that. It took you 16 years because people don't want to reflect on the fact that it even took you 16 years or it took them such an amount of time. But
Well,
it's about owning up to it.
yeah, well, yeah, it's exactly, I mean, anybody will tell you in any kind of therapy, drugs, alcohol, whatever, it starts with owning up to the problem, admitting you have a problem to solve the problem. I mean, if you
Yeah.
ignore it, you're not going to deal with it. So, and that's extremely difficult. The other thing is important, if you live alone or you are alone or whatever, is be do everything possible, when you're going through very challenging times, or like Churchill once said, when you're going through hell, keep going. I mean,
Yeah.
that's very well. It may sound very simple, but it's not. It's very true. It's very bottom line. It's very true, right? Nothing much to be said. But if you are alone, like you don't live with anybody, let's say, or neighbors, try not to be alone. Try to, as much as possible. It's good to socialize a bit, but with people who take you for what you are, because you don't want to get divorced from everything, cut off too much. So, and sit and watch TV, which can't talk to you. It's not a human being or a computer. So
Yeah.
you need a human being. So, as much as possible, if it's family or friends, um, as long as it's somebody would be constructive, it's not going to be another crying on your shoulder. You don't need that. You don't need
Yeah.
crushing empathy or sympathy.
Yeah.
What you need is someone, just to be there, maybe to listen to you, maybe to talk, maybe not, but whatever, maybe have a drink with, you know what I mean? You go and have a drink, you have a coffee or whatever you have. And it's good to go out. I mean, I wrote a piece called Starbucks Orphans. And what it means is that, coffee shops, of course, Starbucks or anyone. The great thing about coffee shops was, you can go there and you can go alone, and generally people didn't bother you, and you can go with a lot of people, and you can just watch the world go by over a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And so you're not alone. You're alone, but you're not alone. And
Mm.
and you have a coffee or tea or whatever the hell, yeah. And and that's healthy. So, but you may feel like an orphan because you have nowhere to go. So
Mm.
Starbucks, by extension, kind of takes you in, or coffee shop, whatever. They're kind of good places to go, and people tend to come and go quickly there generally. So there's a turnover, generally speaking.
Yeah.
They're not going to hold big meetings there. They are, but
Yeah.
generally they're quicker. They're quicker. It's not fine dining, so they're quicker customers spending time. Generally speaking, there are exceptions, but I don't think that many. That's a definition of a coffee shop. A meet
Yeah.
and a chat and coffee, whatever, and you meet for 20 minutes. So that's also, or go somewhere, whatever it may be.
Yeah, exactly. Get out of your environment, get out of your
Yeah,
head. Like you
yeah.
said, meet up with
Push
people,
yourself.
into
Yeah,
community,
yeah.
get out of yourself so that you
Just if
can
you
start
talk to strangers,
seeing.
you go to an event,
Yeah,
like hi, hello, you don't have to ever see them again, but it's just better than talking to yourself sometimes. Trust me.
exactly. You can only talk to yourself for so long. You can only have the same conversation with yourself for so long.
Yeah.
But it's
And
when
maybe
you
sometimes you can't help yourself, so you're not the answer. You gotta. You got to go out and at the end of the day, remember you're a human being. So you have to be a human being, no matter how despairing you feel.
Exactly. And I think one of the best things that when you go out and you do things that are uncomfortable or just out of the norm, just give yourself little milestones. You know what I mean? Especially for those
Very
people
small.
who struggle with anxiety or with depression, who have those anxiety attacks with around major crowds and things like that. I think it's important to know your environment and to try to work your way there. And as long as you work your way there, that's a step. You gotta start somewhere.
And if you want to do stuff, you need action. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have anything figured out. You don't have to know the road. You got to start on the road. Like, don't
Yeah.
get caught or crushed or defeated by how you're going to do it. Okay, because most of the time we don't know. Just get going and say you want to do something. Usually, it's like traveling somewhere unknown. As you travel, you start to learn. Okay, I make a left, I make a right. I think this,
Yep.
but you don't know that goddamn thing when you start. So if you're waiting to know it all, you're never going to do anything. Okay, that's the other thing. You're never going to do anything.
Right,
Absolutely not.
right.
So even action is just doing stuff is very therapeutic. Washing dishes could be very therapeutic sometimes,
It
but
is.
if that's what you do, or just you're pursuing something and take it in very small increments, small, literally baby steps. And
Yeah.
if you accomplish, because one step is one step further than you were. Well, it's a hell of a lot better than where you are now, which is doing nothing.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's one thing that people get
Yeah,
so stuck up on is the high mountains, the high
yeah,
the high
yeah. Then you
moments, the
get
good.
hopefully in time you get stronger and you get more adventurous
Yeah.
and your goals and your reach gets bigger. Hopefully,
Yeah, hopefully. Exactly. And that's the thing. It's just finding the light at the end of the tunnel because when you hit rock bottom, it's so hard to see the possibilities. It's so hard to not get into like a self-pity party and try to figure out why this is happening to me. And I think
so,
once we flip
yeah.
the
Self pity is a
script,
killer. Yeah, it's a killer.
exactly, it is really a killer. But once we flip that script to instead of why me, is why can't we just flip it to what can I use this for? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or how can I see this in a different way? Or like play a game with yourself about like, oh, how many cute things can I see today? Or how many people smiling can I find today? You know what I mean? Those little things will can bring you joy in the smallest of increments that people don't even
And about
realize.
you're saying about light in the tunnel, you got to get in the tunnel to see the light.
Yeah, that's true. You got to recognize the fact that you're in a tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be in there. I mean, it may be obvious, but it's not so obvious.
It's not. It's really not, especially when you have this dark, gloomy perspective. Sometimes it's really hard to even see the obvious
Very
when you're
hard.
so when you're feeding your mind with sorrows, you're feeding your mind with anger and with sadness, and you just feed yourself with this because you have to feed your anger, you have to feed your sadness, you have to let it continue on to build up and to continue. So you're like pouring the water back into for your tears and people don't realize that concept. But I'm curious, if you could tell your younger self anything, what would you tell your younger self after knowing everything that you know now and everything that you've already experienced?
The 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 other thing is everybody faces the common enemy, which is called resistance. No matter what you try to do, the
Mm,
resistance is trying to destroy you. And you can procrastination is like jet fuel for resistance. A lot of things we do. So it's very common, unfortunately, and it's not something you're ever going to get rid of. But it's something maybe just put your ass where resistance is type of thing and get moving like that and try to leverage it as much as possible, okay, and use it and the more you keep doing stuff or try, somebody somewhere somehow some angel's going to recognize that.
yeah, exactly. People don't realize that somebody's usually always watching you some way,
Yeah,
somehow,
I
and,
mean,
and they take
yeah,
note.
I
They
mean,
they recognize it.
for sure.
And they most definitely recognize it. And I think that's a beautiful thing to remind yourself that there's always going to be resistance. There's always going to be some type of hold to you.
As long
But I
as you
think
live. Yeah.
exactly as long as you're living, you know how amazing it is to be your age and after knowing and experiencing and seeing so many deaths throughout your lifetime, I mean, it just makes you grateful to even be alive at this moment, at this day and age, when death was calling everybody at certain points in your life, you know? So it's like people don't realize the fact that you've made another year is already an accomplishment. You know what I mean? Just waking up another day, that's already an accomplishment. To being able to breathe, it seems so small and, like you said, so obvious, but it's really not that obvious. And I think
No,
once people start shifting that perspective,
yeah.
then they'll be like, okay.
The
They'll
obvious is
actually think about it.
yeah, the obvious is not obvious.
It's not. It's not. It's like it's really not that obvious because it's what people are focusing on. People have very selective focus, you know what I mean? Because it depends on what they want to
Don't
focus
don't
on.
waste don't waste too much time in life. One of the things people waste time is they spend too much hours in drive-throughs. Don't go to drive-throughs. You waste too much time. At the end of the day, when you're going to figure out how many hours you were at stupid drive-through, waiting for your coffee or waiting for your, I know I got off topic here, but the bottom line is, sorry about that, your hamburger, you're going to add up. You'll never get it back. I guarantee you.
Exactly. Exactly. You got to just keep going, keep rolling with it. You know what I mean? Observe the surroundings and just don't always take the easy way out because sometimes the hard way or sometimes like what seems like an extra mile or an extra step is just exactly what you needed. That's why I loved when you said just doing the dishes. Doing the dishes is done for me. Like I actually don't mind doing the dishes because it gives me a focus and I'm just focusing on that moment right now. And people don't realize just having your mind focus on something else than what your mind is repeating over and over and over again, that's relaxing. And people just need to step into just that moment of just relaxation, wherever it
Right,
is, however it is.
right.
Right, right, right. Alrighty. So I'm very happy with the way this conversation is going. It's really interesting from your perspective and from your life. So I guess to start wrapping up the show, what it could be some lasting words of wisdom, even though let's be honest, you already gave us a lot to really think about, some
Well,
good points.
at the end of the day, um, you know, the best thing I do, besides the obvious, keep going, which is obvious. But it's like you can't win a race if you don't keep running and keep trying. Olympics. It's a great metaphor, sports. But if there's stuff you want to do, whatever the hell the stuff you want to do is, make plans for yourself, a year, or 2 years, and 3 years. Break it down to its smallest denominators, and then see in six. Or I want to accomplish so much in 6 months or a year. I want to do in 2 years and 3 years, and then just get off your ass and go do it. There's no shortcut for it. Just go. You want to go like if you want to go see a movie outside, not on your TV or Netflix. I'm telling you, like that. Or you want to see a sport event, okay? You got to go to the arena. Yeah, you can watch it on your screen, but I'm talking about if you want to see it live and go there, you can watch it. You can watch it live on your screen, but if you want to physically be there, you got to go there. You want to go to a concert live, you got to go there. You can watch it. So don't let artificial things get in your way. So you got to just do it. Basically, just do it. Make the plans, just do it. There's no excuses. There's none. You either do it or you don't do it. And eventually you're going to run out of time. Trust me if you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. You are eventually going to run out of time one way or another, and people don't think about that. People don't
And
reflect
look
on
for
that.
mentors. Look for mentors. Look for
Ooh.
mentors. Look for people who you respect, who could give you feedback because you don't have all the answers. You need to learn. You need to bounce ideas off. Look to find mentors. You can find them anywhere.
That's true. That is also a very good point. Yes, the mentors. I haven't had anybody tell me bring that up, but that is very true. Mentors are very good because you have to bounce off ideas. You have to
Yeah,
have somebody who's in a realistic plane, who's an outsider looking into your world so that you can just
yeah,
level yourself and humble yourself sometimes. That
yeah.
is
But
a
somebody
very
you
good
respect
point.
who gives you
Yeah.
constructive feedback.
Constructive feedback. Exactly. Not somebody who's there to knock you down every time you try to get up. No, 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 not that type of person. You
No,
need
or also
somebody
somebody who
real.
has nothing to say. If you don't respect their opinion, to be perfectly blunt, don't ask them.
Yeah.
Don't waste your
Right.
time asking them for it.
Exactly. You got to know who to ask for. You need to know who to talk
Yeah,
to.
you got to respect their opinion. You're not going to take it. It's going to mean nothing.
Exactly. That's true. That's very true. That's a good point to remember. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it first from Myron. The thoughts about reinventing yourself when you hit rock bottom. There's a lot of great points for us to think about on this episode. And I think hopefully this will help you continue on thinking, motivate you to move forward, motivate you to keep going. and just continue on thinking, y'all. With that being said,